All right, good morning, everybody. It is 11 o'clock on Thursday, March 23rd, 2023. We will record this. If we can get a good video, we'll have it up on the YouTube. Please do note that some of the things may change going forward. If it does, we'll pull the video down and get a new one up. But do double check. Some of the things may be a little bit outdated at the point that you're watching this in the future. All right, I'd like to introduce to you Linda Painter with Virginia Home Title and Settlement. She is going to go over some tips for listing an estate. As always, if you have questions, please feel free to raise your virtual hand and we'll call you as soon as we can slide that question in. All right, Linda, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending. I get a lot of questions all the time regarding how do I handle a listing when we know that the property is an estate. So I have come up with some points for you all. And I also had a printout that Haley is going to post, or else I can also email it to you. And it's just some things you need to know when you get ready to list a piece of property and the property now is in an estate, and who you have signing that listing, and then who ultimately will end up signing the sales contract. So the first thing I know you always get a question of, or everybody says, that I am the executor. Well, they can only be an executor if there is a will of record. And most of the time they have not recorded that will as of the time you get ready to list the property. And in the will, that will then tell you if someone has been appointed as the executor so that they can sign the listing and the contract. And they have to have the power to sell in that will. And that executor also has to qualify at the court. So all this would be happening down at probate in the city in which the property shows up that you are listing the property for. And everyone gets under the misconception that they're the executor and they can do everything that needs to be done for the sale of that property. And obviously that doesn't happen if they don't have a will. So if they don't have that will and they have not qualified, or they chose not to qualify, then we are going to require that a list of heirs be filed at probate also. And that will then give the list of heirs who are going to have to sign your deed and who's also going to have to sign your contract. And then we get into, and when they go down to do that list of heirs, same you would do with the will, it has to be done at the probate office. And the probate office recently have come up with this thing about an affidavit, a list of affidavit. That is not what the title companies will accept. They want a list of heirs, and that is how is it titled at the record room. And when they go down there, they're going to have a copy of the death certificate of the person that they're doing the list of heirs for. Now we get into the issue of what happens if one of those heirs that's been listed have passed away. Then we go back to the same thing where we're going to need another death certificate, and we're going to need to know who all their heirs are, and we will have to then also take care of that, and they would also be signing. So once we get all of that accumulated at that record room, then we have to do a title search on all parties that are involved in the transaction, all the heirs, and we'll also run the estate. And if any of those heirs have judgments and they pop up, they also have to be paid up to the value of what that heir would receive on the net proceeds of the sale. So that always causes a little problem when no one realizes that once you receive a piece of property and you have judgments, well, when you get ready to sell, guess what? They have to pay, and we have to get a payoff on that. Now the party has died within 1 year. All title companies require that they can either have the funds escrowed for the full year or from the time it gets ready to be dispersed, or they can do what is called a decedent's debt bond indemnity bond. And the title companies charge $2 per thousand of the sales price. So if it's the $100,000, it'd be $200 that would be paid to the title company, and then the funds can then be dispersed. But any and all heirs have to sign that indemnity bond so that we can do all the disbursements on it. Death certificates are going to be required on everyone that was in that title from the point of selling forward. So we're going to need death certificates unless we do have a will. Other than that, we're going to have death certificates. Now, a lot of times we don't have anything in there, and you're going to be seeing a lot of where they're going to want a disinterested party affidavit. They have to say that they know a certain person, but they cannot be related to anybody within that chain of title or to the family. And they call that a disinterested party affidavit. And recently we've been having to do a lot of those where we have an heir that's signing, but somehow we don't know how they're really affiliated and all that. So we get a disinterested affidavit signed by a third party, and we have to have that done. Now you have a will that's been recorded in a different state because the people now live, let's say, in Florida. The will was recorded there, and the property now is located maybe in Virginia Beach. We have to have that will cross-filed into Virginia Beach so that we can move forward to do the closing. Does anyone have any questions as we go through right now?
Muhammad,
Yes.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Mohammed.
Hey, Linda.
Hey, hon, how are you?
Good. What qualifies as an heir? Can you clear that up for me?
Yes. We start off in the state of Virginia. They do have a list of who the heirs are. So we always start with the spouse. If it was a husband and wife on title, then whichever one, then we go to the spouse if they had it tenants by the entireties. So that would be the person, the surviving spouse, the property would go to. Then it goes to their children. They're next in line. And it also, you have to do stepchildren that get involved in that also. So that also becomes a problem when you had a husband and wife, but they did not have title, husband and wife. Let's say they just had a joint tenants, or the wife maybe wasn't on title. So in the state, she would only get 1/3 and the children would get 2/3. And that's who would be signing the title and the deed over to the new buyer. And if they had no children, then we get into siblings and to parents. So that's how we go with the chain of title.
Thank
But
you.
a lot of times if these, like people are now married, but they never put their spouse on and they weren't on title, they only have that 1/3 interest. And so stepchildren then get involved. Any other questions regarding that?
One more question, Linda. I'm sorry.
Uh-huh.
So what
Yes,
if they cannot find one of the kids? Then what's that process look like?
You have to go to court and quiet title. All things have to be run, and so you would have to go quiet title. And we have had a lot of that here lately where one of the children's or siblings has disappeared and no one knows where they are. And so then you have to go to court and have title quieted, and they will tell you who can sign for them. And also, a lot of times you have a guardian that ends up out there where the guardian has to qualify. They have to have the right documentation, where a guardian then now has been appointed because someone is mentally incompetent. And that guardian, they have to have special paperwork for that guardian to sign, and then where the funds go to. Or else you have a minor child and we have a guardian where we appoint the title to go to them for the closing on that. So it gets kind of difficult, especially when you think you have a executor who says they can sign and they never were qualified to be an executor. And a lot of times they say they're an administrator. An administrator cannot sign the deed and pass title unless they are a administrator CTA and they have been appointed that through appropriate title and courts so that they can act as a CTA. And a lot of times that happens with elderly people that are in a nursing home or something like that. And an administrator CTA has been appointed for them to sign all of the documents. But going ahead, if you know right ahead when you're getting things done, when you get ready to do that listing, and you want to make sure you ask the seller for a copy of their deed, and that will tell you who has title. And a lot of times, you know, you'll have people that say, oh, well, I got this property in my divorce. Well, we want to make sure that a deed of gift was passed over to the one party so that they have full title, or that ex-spouse is also going to have to sign because they still have ownership in that property because of the deed. So it helps a lot when you're doing your listing. If you get a copy of the deed and also the survey, if they have that, so that helps when you get ready, when we're getting in to do the title and everything, when you get a new buyer. And a lot of times people say that they were not aware of the fact that there was a mortgage on the property. And that with that closing statement will also help with that, or if they've done a refinance or anything like that, so that we have defects in the title, so that we can move that along a lot quicker, so that we can get it done. So if they get the deed, the owner's title policy, and the survey and that settlement statement, it will save a lot of confusion for the seller side when you get ready to go to closing, and a lot of questions can be answered by having those documents and they not be in a box in California or somewhere like that. We have been using that owner's title policy a whole lot lately to clear up title issues.